Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. As usual, I'm your host, Cody, and today we're starting a brand new theme for August 2020, and that theme is Rick Remender comic books. I haven't done books in a while, comic books especially, and I wanted to trade it up a little different because I've been doing a lot of movies lately on the show. So I thought hard, and I was like, you know what? One of my favorite creators is Rick Remender, and I just haven't really read anything by him in a while. I haven't read a lot of things by anybody for a while, but thinking about it, I decided I'd pick my 4 favorite Rick Remender stories to talk about this month. So in order, first up today, we're talking about Tokyo Ghost. Next week, I'll be talking about a book called Low. That's L-O-W, Low. Then on the following week, I'll be talking about 7 to Eternity. And then the last one will be my very first Rick Remender story I ever read, which is Fear Agent. So we'll get to that in a couple weeks. But today is Tokyo Ghost. Tokyo Ghost, book written by Rick Remender, drawn by Sean Murphy, and colored by Matt Hollingsworth. I've talked about Rick Remender on this podcast before, if I'm not mistaken, many months ago when I did the adaptations episodes, I believe is what they were. I believe I talked about Deadliest Class, which is a unfortunately now canceled television program based on the series by Rick Remender. Besides being the one of the best adaptations, I would say, of direct adaptations of any comic book, really. It feels to me that it was definitely the most well adapted, most accurately adapted, I should say. And it's one of the ones I thought would actually be very hard to do. Not of Rick's, of just of a book in general that seems like a pretty easy premise to do, but to make it true to the source material would take a lot of work. And I think they did a really good job for the first season, and I'm very upset that they didn't do a second season. And I did the episode about it, I believe, when they were before it got canceled, I think, because I did in 2018. But anyways, so I did that, but it made me think about other stuff, and I don't think there was much talk about. I don't think I really talked too much about anything else that Rick did in that episode. I think I just talked about Deadly Class. I might have mentioned Tokyo Ghost, and I might have mentioned some other stuff that he did, but today we're talking about Tokyo Ghost. It'll be a short one. I don't want to go delve too much into them. This one's a 10-issue story released in early 2015. If you really want, I mean, you can get it digitally, but if you really want one of the most spectacular ways to get it, if it's still available to you, released in July of 2017 is the Tokyo Ghost Deluxe Edition. I have it with me here in my office as I lean and grab it. So this is the complete edition. So there's the Deluxe Edition, and then there's the complete edition. Both of them are excellent. They're both hardcover books, but like I was saying, if you want the best version, you should look at the complete edition that was released in, I want to say this was released last year in 2019. It is an oversized. If you're a fan of Image Comics, especially the graphic novels, when they release the trades, they're fantastically priced, usually anywhere from $10 to, I think the most I've ever seen is like $15, which is really good. But when they do their hardcovers, they like to do them oversized. What I mean by oversized, for the folks who don't know, is a normal graphic novel or trade paperback of a collection is the same physical size as a comic book, which I don't know the dimensions. I probably should know, but I don't. The oversized version of it is essentially going to be an extra, I would say, somewhere around 40% larger. Image does one thing that I kind of wish a lot of other companies did too, is they use a really thick cardstock for the pages, and it's makes it just hold up better. It looks better, and especially with the other creators in this book, like I said, Sean Murphy and Matt Hollingsworth, it really brings out the art, because Sean's art is phenomenal. In this book, which I'll talk about a little bit, I do less of the story and more about the book itself, or the art and stuff. But his art is fantastic, and Matt Hollingsworth is one of my favorite colorists, and he does amazing job in this book. It's so crazy, the things he does, like the fact that there's parts in this that actually look like it is glowing, which is insane. And I think it actually looks better in this print than it did in the individual issues. But I digress. So, not to go into craziness about the creators, but I talked about a little bit about Rick. Sean Murphy is one of my favorite artists. I believe I talked about his Batman book before on here, but he's done a handful of stuff. One of my favorites he's done, which I'll talk about at one point sometime in the future, is Joe the Barbarian with Grant Morrison. Fantastic book. He did one of my favorite Mark Millar stories, which is Chrononauts. He did Tokyo Ghost, obviously. And lately, his last big things he's been doing is actually his own stuff inside the Batman world, as most people will call it now, is the Murphyverse, I believe is what they refer to it as. And in that, he has done a couple things. One is he's created his own world that his Batman lives in. Started off with Batman White Knight, then went on to do a one-shot spin-off, I should say, called Batman White Knight Presents Von Freeze, which is a fantastic Dr. Freeze story. And then he did a sequel to White Knight called Curse of the White Knight, which just wrapped up in March. Yes. Of this year. And then just announced recently he has extended his universe, his Murphyverse, into actually letting other artists and writers work in it, and they're going to be doing other stories within it. They're doing a Harley Quinn one, and they're doing a Batwing or a Nightwing one, I believe. I can't remember the other ones they were doing, but so that's pretty cool. But Sean also has his own stuff, like creator-owned stuff outside of the stuff he's created with Rick and with Mark Millar and the Batman stuff, as well as the other things he's done. But the big thing is he has a Kickstarter that just or Indiegogo that just ended, called Plot Points or Plot Holes, and that sounds a really cool book. So you should check that out if you want a upcoming book that he will have released early next year, I believe. But yeah, that's Sean Gordon Murphy, or Sean Murphy as most people know him. He used to go by Sean Gordon Murphy, but now I think he's pretty much shortened it down to Sean Murphy. But yeah, that's Sean Murphy. He's pretty awesome. Matt Hollingsworth has done a ton of stuff. One of my I go back to so many different ones that he's done. His probably one of the earliest things that I was introduced into him when I really recognized him, and obviously, and actually was one of the earliest times where I kind of started paying attention to. I think I talked about this before. about artists and colorists and what actually makes them different is his work with the Eternals for Neil Gaiman's run that he did that along with John Romita Jr. And it's fantastic. One of his my favorite things he did is with Matt Fraction and David Aja, which is their run on Hawkeye that they did in 2012. Yeah, which was fantastic. But he's worked on so many different things. And I believe many months ago I talked about Sky Captain: The World of Tomorrow. And I believe I mentioned Matt Hollingsworth because he actually worked on those movies. He was a texture painter and technical director on that movie, as well as Serenity, and he did Superman Returns, among other things. But yeah, that's Matt Hollingsworth, one of my favorite colorists in the business, and he's fantastic, and you should check him out. All right, so real quick, talk about a little bit about the story. Not that it actually matters what it's about. You should just check it out anyways. But the synopsis is this. The series is set in 2089, a time when humanity is addicted to technology and entertainment. It follows the story of constables Debbie Decay and Led Dent working as peacekeepers in the Isles of Los Angeles. They are given a job that will take them to the last tech-free country on Earth, the Garden Nation of Tokyo. So, basically in this world, I know this is going to simplify it and not really going to give every minute detail about it, is the world has succumbed to the virtual world. So, less and less people are living in the real world, and they're hooked into computers. So much so that they have augmented their bodies to not only live a different lifestyle, but make their surroundings look different as well, because they have augmented their vision, and so they see different things, and they don't. Their reality is only that. So the virtual reality is their reality, and outside world is lost to them because it's covered up by the augmentations. So our two heroes, Debbie Decay and Led Dent, are working for their own rights. They're trying to Debbie is trying to free Dent from his addiction, even though everyone tells her that he's pretty much gone, which is part of it. And as Rick said himself in a summarization of it, is a big visual, exciting story that at the heart of it is hiding the fact that it is really a love story. And it's a love story between Led Dent and Debbie Decay, as they're known when the book begins. You'll understand what I mean by that later. But yeah, it's action packed. It has amazing visuals. One of my favorite things about Sean Murphy's art is his technical stuff. And to get a little more into that, there's actually an interview I'll post on the website about it. It's not an interview I did. It's an interview that Image Comics did with Sean shortly after the finale, I believe. Yeah. Yes, was the finale of the 10 issues released in 2016 from Image Comics. I'll link there an article to it. It talks about his influences and kind of how he crafted it. Because when you look at, and in that you'll get some art, and I'll post some images of it as well. The art in it, issue 1 alone, and actually I have there's a artist proof edition's a big thing that Image does. Last tangent, I promise. I just recently got another one, but I've had a few of them. But what's cool about the artist at proof editions, if you've never seen them, they're giant size artist proof editions. What does that mean? It means a couple things. Basically, when artists draw the books, they draw them on very large pieces of paper if they're still hand-drawn versus digitally drawn. But the artist proof edition is literally the size of the page that the artist draws on, and then they are then shrunk down for print. And when I say they're large, they're like, I don't even actually, you know what? I don't know if this tells me or not how big they are. They're quite large, like 24 by something. Where's it at? Is it 24? I can't remember. Oh, here it is. Okay, so little smaller than that. So they're printed in a 11 by 17, so 11 inches wide, 17 inches tall, and they are phenomenally gorgeous. Highly recommend those ones for sure for anything you like. I have Tokyo Ghost, which is issues 1 and 2 in the large format, and it basically shows all of Sean Murphy's inking or lines and ink and everything. It's fantastic, and shading and fun stuff without any of, unfortunately, any of Matt's art or coloring in there. But I just got Oblivion Song from Robert Kirkman. I have one by, I have Witches by Jock and Zack Snyder. Scott Snyder. Not Zack Snyder. Scott Snyder. I have a few of them. That's not one of them. That's a vinyl. It's a vinyl of Circus Survive. Not what I'm looking for. I had them. I didn't have them near me. Go have them up a couple here. Witches, and I think I have. That's the Tokyo Ghost one. I have a couple other ones too. I don't know where they're at. Oh, that one's way far from me. I can't reach that one. But yeah, they're super dope. They're the purest way of getting the art of the line drawings and the without the coloring and things like that. And they're pretty phenomenal. They're bigger than they should be, but not hard to see. But they're pretty cool. Anyways, I digress. Back again. So basically, final point. It's a crazy sci-fi book that has a little bit too much reality in it, if you know what I mean, about living your life in a digital world outside of reality. And Rick really brings it to a point where in the, I mean, not say near to far future, but in our future, this is the kind of world we would be in where everything is digitized and the world is less directly interacting with each other versus through the digital realms, through augmentation, and you never know really who you're talking to directly because of anonymity and secrecy and things like that. And that's part of this is where the exploitation of this technology is one of the many, many things that goes on. But yeah, that's it for this week's episode. Again, we were talking about Rick Remender comic books this month. Today we're talking about Tokyo Ghost. Tune in next week or for the next episode if you're not doing in order whenever you're watching this or listening to this. If you're watching this, A, I don't know how you got video of it, but B, awesome. I'm sorry for my hair. But anyways, when you're listening to this, the next story I'll be talking about will be Low by Rick Remender, and I'll go over that more then. But I did pick. I forgot actually. I forgot to mention that. So all 4 of the books I chose not because they are my favorites. Well, I had a hard time choosing because Death and Glory is amazing. I already talked about Deadliest Class. Even the stuff he did with that Rick did with Marvel, with like Spider-Man and Captain America stuff and the Fallen or not Hidden Empire. Is that one he did? I can't remember what it's called, but the Hail Hydra stuff he did, phenomenal. But that's not. Oh, and the stuff he did with Captain Falcon, phenomenal stuff there too. Anyhow, the stuff I picked was all crazy sci-fi stuff because it kind of goes to my theme of lately of, not lately because last week I did comedies and stuff like that, but I wanted to pick more of his super sci-fi fantasy stuff. And so that's what I picked, and you'll get more taste of that when you get to Low, and then 7 to Eternity, and of course Fear Agent, which is, again, I think my favorite of all of Rick's stuff is Fear Agent, and I will go over that again when I get there in 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. Anyhow, that's it for this week's episode, everybody. Again, I'm your host, Cody, and like I always say at the end of these, let's be awesome. All right, bye, guys.